A giant flock of birds of prey. The aerial acrobats are kites. Leaving no carcass behind, they've been given the name vultures of the north. True lightweights amongst the feathered hunters are harriers. They playfully create a bond for the next breeding season. The backdrop for their performance has changed drastically over the past few years. But the adaptability of kites and harriers is the reason why these delicate artists are back on the ascent. It's early March. Many animals are still searching the ground for a safe place from the cold. The ones who can't escape from their enemies into the air have a problem. There's no cover for their hares. Only a state of high alert can ensure their survival. Or a good hiding place. Warm and protected, the hamster is asleep in its hollow at the edge of the field. It collected a supply of food in the late summer when there was still plenty to eat, and it feeds from it during the short waking periods in the winter. The ones who can't do that either camouflage themselves or flee. The jackdaws simply flee to the next field. But biologist Claudia Purkauer from the Bavarian Society for the Protection of Birds is looking for the animals that make considerably longer journeys. She recognizes the common buzzard immediately with its wide wingspan like a small eagle. It stays put even in the winter. The buzzard does manage to defend itself against the jackdaws, but it's not very agile. The common buzzard is mostly found in Germany's fields. It is looking for prey, predominantly mice, usually from a raised hide. Unploughed areas provide a refuge not only for this pair of windchats, but also for their predator. The marsh harrier flutters its wings in the wind, spread out in a V shape. It always looks for prey from the air. The male marsh harrier is a striking figure. Its wings span over 1.20 meters, but are not as wide as the buzzard's. Its tail is long and slightly rounded at the back. The underside of its tail and wings is typically pale, only the ends are black. And it wears red trousers. The female is a little bigger and is predominantly brown. Far more nimble than the buzzard of the same size, the harrier is able to make a capture even in high reeds sometimes. This one has only been here a few days. The marsh harrier spends the winter in Spain or Africa. Harrier specialist Claudia is happy to see this sight. Nevertheless, she is concerned. Where is its sibling? Senegal, Africa, almost 5,000 kilometers away. You wouldn't expect the birds that dominate the landscape here to be birds of prey. And yet the vultures that feed on carcasses also belong to the same species as hawks. The delicate Montagu's harrier is also a member of this large bird family. They are here on a summer retreat when it gets too cold far away in Europe and there isn't enough to eat. A few powerful flaps of their wings to take off, then they glide there, light as carrier pigeons. It's almost time to start the long journey to Europe. At the end of March, there is finally some movement in the fields there. And a special kind of bird of prey arrives immediate. The red kite is one of the first of the migrating birds to make it back home. It glides quietly across the ground without much flapping of its wings. Kites hunt by sight, just like harriers. They know how to spot a good opportunity better than almost any other bird of prey. The plough has brought small animals up to the surface. We only find the red kite in Europe. It needs a wide open landscape for hunting, so fields have become one of its favourite areas. This is the easiest place for this keen-eyed huntsman to find its prey. The red kite gets its name from the brown and red colour of the feathers on its body and wings. The white area at the tips of its wings is striking, alongside its light-coloured head and clearly indented tail. The fields change rapidly around April-May. The very thing that brings us pleasure is a big problem for the red kites. There is no prey to catch in the rapeseed that has grown so high so early. It needs open fields to hunt in and trees for nesting. This little thief has no reason to fear the predator. The red kite is too big and not agile enough to catch it between the trees. The red kite likes to cushion its nest with old newspapers and other pieces of rubbish. Partners from the year before often find their way back together at their nests. During the breeding period, the male provides for the female, with rubbish, mice, and until recently, mainly with an animal that has become rare in the open countryside. He only dares to come out after dark, provided it is already the end of April and therefore time for the field hamster to emerge. The hamster hasn't left its hollow for almost half a year now. Nowadays, it is no longer a given that it will survive the winter. Many hamsters die of hunger. They don't always find enough seeds in the autumn because the grains are being harvested increasingly early, and only dry foods like that will keep over the winter. In order to avoid hunters like red kites that are active during the day, the hamsters put off much of their activity until the night time. But hungry foes roam around at night too, so the hamster always needs a cover, even in the dark. The days are getting longer and warmer now. The winter barley, the only grain, has now reached knee height. It is time for Claudia Perkauer to keep a lookout for her young charges. Pellets, undigested, regurgitated food and feathers. Owls are not the only ones to leave this behind. There it is, the one who left this residue. Grey, the size of a pigeon, wings with black tips and a black stripe on the top. A little male Montagu's Harrier. Finally, they have returned from Africa. The female is brown, with a striking white face mask, and just like all Harriers, it has a notably long tail. The males are already marking their mating territory. The males go after their chosen ones. With all they've got. A mouse is the bridal gift. For the female it proves, as a couple they will have mice as food for the offspring, and he is clever enough to catch them. The large number of Harriers indicate a good year for mice. Courtship and laying eggs don't happen when the Harriers don't find any mice. The couple woo each other in a spectacular dance in the sky. The Montagu's Harriers don't breed side by side in colonies, but they do tolerate each other within a reasonable distance on the same field. The female looks convinced and lures the male. Even though there are many others to choose from, the pairs in mating season appear to be strictly monogamous. The male stands guard. Another kind of hunter is close by. The fox wouldn't have offspring either if there weren't enough mice. But the winter was mild, and so there is enough for everyone. Foxes don't regurgitate food for their offspring like wolves do, but instead they bring it to them whole. The vixen has the best chance that her young will survive when there are plenty of mice available. The cubs are now too big for the red kites. They like to settle close to lakes and rivers. They're also good at catching fish. The female red kite brings a tissue to cushion the nest, sometimes shreds of plastic too. Plastic is dangerous for the young, as the water can't flow out of the nest when it rains and the chicks can become ill. While the female is on the lookout, the male has made a good catch. Carrion and pieces of rubbish are important sources of nourishment for red kites nowadays. Yet the buzzard doesn't like the idea of sharing at mealtime. Bigger but lighter, the red kite loses out. He can't return to the nest without any food. He takes some food that he put away earlier and feeds it to the female, so that at least he looks like the breadwinner of the family. There are now baby animals all over the forest. The fawn hides in a safe place while its mother is grazing. The two only come together from time to time for the fawn to suckle. The fawn is safe from the red kite. It is looking for fish instead. A fish is just the right size. The red kite needs space to hunt down its prey and grab it. Lakes and fields are both wide open landscapes. The red kite tries its luck elsewhere when it can't catch hamsters and mice due to modern field cultivation methods. Nowadays, fields are mostly giant single-crop industrial areas. They hardly offer any protection, and what's more, they're often covered in poison. Spaces like this no longer provide homes for field hamsters, so they have become an extremely rare sight, especially in the daytime. They only dare to come into the daylight in a few small patches of meadow. One thing entices him from his hollow. The male hamster is ready to mate. But first he must win the female's trust. Hamsters are loners and aren't used to closeness. She tolerates him by her side just for a short while. The two go their separate ways again after they've mated. The green fields now offer the suckling doe some good fresh nourishment. The winter barley is the only grain that is already tall enough but isn't ready to be cut down yet, unlike in the neighbouring meadow. The Montagu's harrier can find building materials here for its nest, but no longer a mating ground. In the past, birds mated in the wetlands and meadows, but marshes are being drained and the meadows are mown very early in the year. The Montagu's harriers have cleverly worked out how to adapt to the changing landscape. They mate here in the winter barley. If that hadn't grown, these birds would have died out here. Lizards are just the right size that harriers like to eat. Adult hares are too big. Nevertheless, the male dares to attack, but only to drive the long-eared animals out of their nesting ground. One meadow after the other is now being mown. Everyone is here. Harriers, buzzards, red kites. There is a rich array on offer to them, just like after it was ploughed several weeks earlier. Mice are startled as their cover is revealed. The doe left her young in this field. Where is the fawn? The kites, vultures of the north, will find it. So that the same fate doesn't threaten the harriers and their brood in the fields of winter barley, nature conservationists have been working together with the resident farmers for several years. They inform them when the harriers are expected to be brooding in their farmlands. If the farmers agree not to mow the affected parts of their land, they are provided with other land as compensation. The winter barley is still green, so there is no danger. The harriers have only just laid their eggs. Mostly there are 3 or 4. The time has now come for Susan Janowski. For her doctoral thesis, the biologist is researching how much the animals stay close to home, who the fathers of the brood are, how many animals move there, and from where. So she places a kind of bugging device in the bird's nest, disguised as an egg. The egg has holes in it, not only to provide ventilation. The biologist observes the breeding ground. She is waiting for the female to leave the nest and to seize her opportunity. She simply sneaks the bug egg under the harriers. The harrier returns to the nest after a short time. Without being noticed, the kissing bug pierces the skin of the brooding female and sucks itself full of blood. A bug egg like this is slipped into the nests of dozens of harriers for a short time. As soon as the female has left the nest again, Susan can collect the egg. The bug needs around 10 minutes to fill up. The bug egg is noticeably heavier. The kissing bug now really does have a firm abdomen filled with harrier blood. The blood now needs to be analysed. Suddenly, a foreign bird of prey dares to make its way into Montagu's harrier territory. It is the marsh harrier. Although the Montagu's harrier is clearly smaller than its relative, it doesn't tolerate the intruder here. The marsh harrier also likes to use the open field or freshly mown meadow to hunt. It still continues to mate in the marshlands, though. The draining of these marshlands has resulted in a sharp decline in numbers of these harriers. In a way that is typical for harriers, the male woos the female by offering a bridal gift, a symbol of their connection that the birds repeat every now and then during the breeding season. The major relative of the Montagu's harrier has been one of the biggest victims of landscape change. Yet the ban on DDT insecticide and the introduction of protection zones have helped to raise the numbers of marsh harriers again. The male attentively patrols his territory. Nobody is to come too close to his family. The pair already have young in their nest in a small undisturbed corner around 3 weeks earlier than the Montagu's harrier. Here too, it is mainly the father that provides for the young. But the adult birds come to the nest regularly, even without bringing any gifts, to keep a watchful eye on the little ones. The whinchats need to be careful. They have their own young to take care of. There is no sibling love palpable among the marsh harriers. As with many birds of prey, the term pecking order applies in its truest sense. Often, the youngest family member doesn't survive, even when the parents hunt for what they can. Adult hares are too heavy, even for marsh harriers. But separated from their mothers, young hares often crouch in tall grass. Even for marsh harriers, our largest harriers, a catch like this is not the order of the day. Now, the female hare has noticed the attack on her young, but it is too late. Early summer unfolds in all of its splendor. It will soon be time for the second mowing of the meadow. A source of nectar will be there for many insects. The grains will also soon be threshed. Claudia Purkauer is sought after again. For several years she has chosen to use drones. The advantage of this method, she is able to look for harriers from a distance in an unmown field without creating a pathway to the nest for robbers like foxes. Will these little birds that hatched late survive? The farmer knows about the Montagu's harriers in his field. He will refrain from harvesting the grain with a 50-meter boundary around the nest. In return, he will receive another patch of land or a compensation. Yet there are dangers that compensation can't prevent. The fox is the young brood's most dangerous enemy. But it can smell something else right now. It is micing, as this jumping technique is called. Not only hamsters put food away for the winter, but because the fox doesn't have fat cheeks, it has to use another strategy. It hides its loot and keeps hunting. If the fox isn't successful, it starts to look for food supplies little by little. It fills its mouth as full as it can and makes its way back home to the young. This method saves time and energy. When it's a good year for mice, life is twice as good for the Harriers. Enough food for themselves and also for the fox, who doesn't need to come after their chicks. Claudia Perkauer's team doesn't want to rely on that alone. A helper places a fence that foxes can't get through around several of the nests previously discovered using the drones. Once people are out of reach, the parents feel safe to return to the nest. The Harriers seem to be tolerating the protection measures. For purposes of comparison, not all of the nests are protected. It could be the case, after all, that giving too much protection to them has negative effects. For example, that the brood isn't as well nourished by the parents, and that more birds survive without protection even if the fox clears out some nests. The red kite has made a rare catch in its territory, a small bird. They are able to do that now and again in the open field, but never in the woods. Its young are already almost independent after more than 40 days. Around 18,000 pairs of red kites are breeding here, which is more than half of the world's population. But a nest full of independent young is no longer something we can take for granted. The number of offspring is declining. Conservationists see the cause above all as the loss of variety. More and more grasslands and fallow fields are being turned into monocultures. What's more, due to the use of chemicals against weeds and rodents, the grain is growing so fast that the kite is simply losing its sense of perspective. Freshly mown meadows do offer advantages. Young foxes also benefit. The hamster, on the other hand, has a problem with it. How is it supposed to look for food without being seen? The young are just 4 days old, blind and deaf, and completely dependent on their mother. If anything happened to her, the whole litter would perish. Hamsters follow a strategy that is typical for young rodents. They can have many offspring every year, 2 litters, with up to 18 young each time. Not all of them survive the cold, the predators, and lack of food, but from this large number, several are left. The little ones don't want to let go of their milk source, but if you're raising many offspring, you need to conserve your energy. The mother needs to find something to eat, whether or not they want her to. Looking for food in the middle of the day is highly risky, and the female hamster is more careful than usual. Young foxes are still out practicing. It's too much for the mother. She goes without food. It wouldn't be the first time a fox has dug up a hamster family. She moves her home. Quite an ordeal with so many babies. But she has already prepared for it. Hamsters always have several pockets of food. The winter barley is ripe in July. Now, the young Montagu's Harriers are big enough to tag. With the help of the GPS data stored earlier in the year, Claudia Purkauer finds the nests again quickly. This nest has only been marked with a flag, not a fence against the foxes, and yet all of the young have survived, and the farmer will continue to mow around the flag at the right distance. With the tagging ring, the bird becomes an individual. Wherever it is found, bird watchers know where it comes from and how old it is. The farmer is also helping. These chicks are even younger. Not all couples start to brood at the same time. Many hands are needed, and the cooperation motivates the farmers in addition to the compensation to make their land available. Over the past few years, the Montagu's Harriers have seen a return to their breeding success, and recently they have also been reproducing again in regions from which they had long since disappeared. Slowly but surely, the other grains are becoming ripe. Small animals can still find protection here, like crickets. When mating, the female is on top and leaves a mark on her sexual partners with her scent, and then she knows for sure he's been here before. The hamster mother has had a difficult time. Her offspring are still dependent on her, but they are becoming more and more independent by the day. The mother is able to limit her search for food to the safe nighttime hours again. Now she can find plenty to eat around their hollow. The youngsters want to go outside now too. A grasshopper is about to be eaten. Hamsters are not strict vegetarians. Even amongst hamsters, there are frightening, obedient, and less obedient characters. The barn owl has caught a water vole this time. The very next day, the hamster's world will be completely changed, and not all of them will survive this change. With the modern combine harvester, a field is laid bare in just a few hours, no chance to escape. But the farmers have spared them. The young Montagu's Harriers have now become independent. The female is practicing how to catch prey with them, with the same game that she will later use to find a partner. Little by little, the Harriers need to learn how to survive alone. They will travel to Africa as soon as mid-August. When the autumn casts its colours across the land, the delicate birds are already long gone. The strong autumn winds are good for producing energy. But for the kites, the wind turbines are fatal. The fallow land, rich in food, attracts the birds underneath the pylons as if by magic, often with deadly consequences. An estimated 300 red kites perish every year in wind turbines. Autumn is the season for flocks of birds. The red kites are some of the first to return in the spring and some of the last to leave. They roam around across large areas and use fields that have been harvested in the meantime to catch small birds and mice. They often gather in numbers where the temperature conditions are best. With this technique of using warm ascending winds, they sail through the largest part of their flight towards the south, 50 to 200 kilometers every day. The Iberian Peninsula is the goal for most of them. They arrive after around 2 weeks. Throngs of vultures of the north, red kites, gobble up every last scrap of roadkill. Rabbits, visibly smaller than hares, are a welcome addition to the kite's food supply. The little long-eared creatures seem to know that. For an animal that hunts by sight, the barren land with just a few trees is ideal. And there's another benefit: baiting areas. Really, it's not meant for red kites, but for dwindling vulture species. But that doesn't stop the kite from seizing the opportunity. Other guests from Central Europe have also come to spend the winter in this host country with its pleasant winter climate. Marsh harriers. The game with the mouse also happens in Spain. Just like at home, the birds here like to withdraw to the reed areas. They share the terrain with local harriers who breed in Spain and stay the whole year round. Not all of the migrating birds in Central and Western Europe set off on the journey south anymore. Around 2,000 red kites in Germany alone avoid the strenuous journey. So now the buzzard, who has never moved very far, has to share its territory with them. After the breeding period, the kites have set aside their territorial behavior and often spend the night together. In winter, the fields are completely bare again. The hamster has already been in hibernation for a long time. Mice hardly dare to come out. In addition, snow makes the search for food more difficult. But the fox and hare have been fine with that for centuries. The kites, on the other hand, have a hard time. Since unregulated rubbish dumps have become rare, they only survive with the help of supplementary feeding in some places. And the point and value of offering such measures to help them are controversial. Seeing images like this makes it hard to believe that the northern harrier that lives in the cold northern regions of Europe during the summer should choose Central Europe as their winter residence. They breed from Ireland to Kamchatka and very occasionally on the North Sea islands. Now it is too uncomfortable for them in their breeding areas, too cold. It looks confusingly similar to the Montagu's harrier. But if you see a delicate grey bird skillfully hunting across the fields in the winter, you can be sure it is not a Montagu's harrier. Because they already moved from Europe to Africa in August. Across the wide savannah, the harriers hunt in their usual way, their wings in a V shape letting them flutter. They have also been observed here for several years by the biologist Almut Schleich and her colleague Jan Cox. The vultures are here all year round. There is no need for them to go elsewhere. They find carcasses everywhere, above all in countries where cattle is kept openly. Water, on the other hand, is in short supply. The few watering holes attract many animals, so Almut and Jan look there first to find harriers. There they are. The distribution and behavior of the Montagu's harriers have been documented for many years, also in their African resting places. Because what use is the best protection of the brood in Europe if the animals die in their winter homes? The jackals don't like seeing the harriers here at all. The vultures can defend themselves, but for the harriers, the jackal takes on the role of the fox in Africa as enemy number one. The birds that sleep on the ground are easy prey, especially at night. This time the jackal just wants to cool off, but after the sun goes down, that will change. The researchers are interested in what the birds eat, among other things. Since mice are quite rare, Almut and Jan are looking for feces and pellets. They mostly find the remains of grasshoppers and other insects inside. Showing how adaptable these delicate artists are, the Harriers in Senegal adjust their eating habits accordingly. They take whatever there is plenty of, and so these mice hunters turn into insect hunters. But that has its drawbacks. DDT insecticide is still used in many African countries to fight the plagues of insects. The scientists want to convince the people in the country to use other, less harmful methods. Migrating birds like the Montagu's harrier need protection across different countries, even across different continents. If that can be achieved, they can continue to present their acrobatic skills from Africa to Europe and beyond for many years to come. These fascinating birds that perform their circus in the sky.
A small village in the heart of Germany is the favorite summer resort for storks. The locals are particularly neighborly, and that gives them special insights. The storks must deal with all kinds of challenges. And they give their hosts quite a hard time, too. But what is it that draws the birds to this particular place? And why does Rooat top the bill as the #1 stork village? Mid-March, and the dormant winter season is over in Rooat, a small village in Brandenburg. Resident stork fans have already started work. They're constructing a new nesting spot. Mayor and conservationist Jürgen Herper lends a hand himself. The 60-year-old knows exactly how to attract storks. A good portion of meadow soil makes it all nice and comfortable. Stork nests put a lot of extra weight on a roof. Jürgen Herper repairs the damage. There's not much time left. The guests are already on their way. While the storks have long departed African shores, their seasonal hosts are busy preparing their summer quarters. Too much soil and twigs from last year. Out it goes. Encrusted refuse gets the same treatment. Nest cleaning is all part of the bird lovers' room service. The focal point is the old water tower. It's the symbol of Rooat and luxury accommodation for the airborne guests. Late March, and the time has come. After a flight of several thousand kilometers, the storks return to their nursery grounds. The village offers 50 nests to its feathered lodgers, though it has a mere 200 residents itself. The male storks arrive first. Creatures of habit, they head straight for their usual summer nest. And the picture postcard idyll is complete. The season has begun and certainly keeps one person on his toes. Mayor Jürgen Herper. He has his own theory about why the storks have singled out his town in particular.
Ob sie das Ortsschild Rüstedt lesen können, wage ich zu bezweifeln.
Well, I shouldn't think they follow the road signs. They have to get to the river Elbe. It's buried instinctively in their genes. The Elbe is Germany's last major breeding ground for the white stork. So whether their flyway to the river is via Spain or Turkey, they'll land up right here, because the Elbe is their migratory boundary.
Almost all birds arriving here fly east and migrate back over the Bosporus from their winter quarters. The stork hens arrive a short while later to joyful reunions. After a journey of several weeks, some thorough personal hygiene is called for. Every feather is cleaned and put back into its proper place. This is also a good time to concentrate on their partners. The relationship has to be cemented. Storks, as we know today, are faithful to their nests rather than to a single partner. The villagers try to keep up with the situation. I've counted 19 pairs.
So 2/3 of them are here, and a few singletons.
There's still time.
Another 4 weeks.
Yeah. The guests are registered by the local accommodation agency. Jürgen Herper tries to identify them.
Both with no ring.
They're not ours.
Well, you can't really say that, but could be interesting.
Address and day of arrival are also logged.
It's important for our visitors, of course. It's nice for visitors and locals when the storks return, and they always ask, so how many have arrived already, and how many are there now, and how many do you think might still come? And you can say, well, almost 2/3 have arrived, and the rest are still on their way.
First come, first served. Furnishing materials need collecting. If you want storks in your village, you can't be too fussy about tidying up. Some local residents offer building materials especially for the birds. There's certainly plenty of choice here. Not all of them are particularly skilled at home improvements. The neighbours at nest number 11 know that teamwork wins the day. But gravity still takes its toll. Some start to redistribute resources. Latecomers have to put up with the early birds' leftovers. This is probably the fastest way to smarten up your own residence. and it will be reconstructed, altered and extended throughout the summer. Some families are content with very little. At number 12, there are no big plans for the future. Number 1, however, is a bit of an exaggeration. A nest like this can weigh a ton. And this bird is trying to do it with as little material as possible. Clearly an experiment. Whatever the method of construction, after a few weeks, almost all the nests are occupied, old as well as new. And now they can settle down to a peaceful breeding season. Or can they? Some singletons have begun to cause a nuisance. It's the 3-year-olds returning to their breeding grounds for the first time. They have no partners as yet, and no homes. And they're a disturbance to the peace. The unruly youths are scared off, and the couples go back to enjoying their domestic bliss. Peace regained, the nest dwellers once again devote themselves to everyday matters in stork society. Most important is the constant patching up of their summer residence. Now there's a nice twig. His lady partner still has to be won over, but she accepts the minor tweak of the nest decor, and everything's fine. As darkness falls, the storks gather on the rooftops, and another nocturnal visitor arrives in the village. Now that all the storks are at home, it's time for him to get to work. Dr. Michael Katz researches the lives of migrating birds and has fitted transmitters to several of the storks.
Ah, great.
There's a transmitter in the village. The beeps give it away, but Dr. Katz isn't sure yet exactly where.
Right. Over here. I'm going to try and download it.
Using a special scanning device at a distance of 100 meters, the researcher copies all the stored data brought back on the memory chip worn by the summer guest. At 5-minute intervals, the data logger diarizes the updates. Eventually, he traces which bird it is. It's the male stork residing at number 16. The researcher is eager to see the results. Within 15 minutes, he's downloaded 50,000 data units. Now he can track the flight path taken over the past 8 months. The male stork flew south over Turkey, followed the Nile, and sailed the thermals all the way to Chad. Katz is satisfied for now. In summer, the Elbe is the ultimate goal for the storks of Rooat. The river's water meadows are a biosphere reserve, offering the storks plenty of feeding spots in the spring. After their long flight, they must eat and drink their fill. And there's free lodging in nearby Rooat. The stork's victims huddle together. With any luck, the enemy will move on to some other tasty morsel. No cornfields, no rape monoculture. The lush meadows are just one of the reasons why so many storks are attracted to this place in particular. Other creatures also benefit from the abundant supply of food. Cranes, for example. This nature paradise will soon lure many more visitors. The villagers make the necessary preparations. The mayor also has in mind his village's flightless visitors, and he takes appropriate measures.
It's to catch people's attention. Those entering Rooat by car who don't know the area. It's very narrow. The driver at the front is looking up, the three other passengers look out of their windows, and then they get a shock when another car comes at them from the opposite direction.
Storks have right of way. The birds literally take over the whole village for several months. Man and beast get a little closer to each other. The feathered guests are already attracting the first nature lovers. No sooner is everything in place than things start happening. Not up above this time, but on the ground. Shops, 3 restaurants, 2 hotels, a post office and a nursery school. Almost everyone in the village benefits from the nesting birds. The village's usual eagle symbol is now usurped by the stork. It's not that the storks lay golden eggs, but you'd be forgiven for thinking so. On the outskirts of the village, the Nature Conservation Centre crowns the area like a castle. It was built here in the bird stronghold especially to attract visitors and distribute information. For the storks, it's just a couple of extra nests. They don't know that they are the centre of attention. A camera set up by the German Society for the Conservation of Nature constantly monitors their private life. Every move in Nest 33 is recorded. Stork live show. Even the innkeeper is fascinated. They have to hurry so as not to miss anything. The storks are in breeding mood. Every move atop the water tower will be transmitted to the restaurant. And not before time, the wedding ceremony has just started, with head nodding. The local stork club observes its own rituals.
Nummer 13. Yup.
The members reveal their statistics. Every occupied stork guest house is indicated by a sign on the door. tailor-made service for stork fanciers.
Alles gut. Jo, dann. Jo, zum nächsten. Jo.
Just a few days after the wedding, the first eggs appear in the nest. Thereafter, every 2 days there's another egg, until there are 5. From now on, the partners share parenting duties. The eye of the lens on the barn roof communicates the goings-on inside the nest to the main room in the stork club, to the delight of visitors. But everyday life among the storks isn't all idyllic. Suddenly a quarrel breaks out, and one of the parents tosses an egg out of the nest. No one can explain this behavior. The other parent stops the troublemaker. Before the eyes of the onlookers, this stork marriage falls apart. The bird left behind attempts to save the remaining eggs, but without a partner, it hasn't a chance of hatching them. On another roof, at the edge of the village, harmony seems to rule. But there's something in the air. The former partner of the nesting stork returns from the south a little late. Fiercely determined, the enraged stork hen chases off her ex-partner and his new lady friend and destroys their clutch of eggs. Feuds like this are hard to understand, but the long-time resident doesn't care. She has her nest back. More unrest, the researchers are back. They want to take a look inside the transmitter-wearing stork's nest using a remote-controlled drone.
He's not phased at all by the drone. You have to get a bit closer. Now he's standing up, and we can tell how many eggs there are.
There are 3 eggs in the nest. The researchers will compare this number later on with the number of fledglings leaving the nest. Piece by piece, they collect the breeding success data using the latest high-tech. Research and old knowledge go hand in hand. The most important thing is to ensure that the storks have enough to eat. And their hosts leave nothing to chance. They have an ingenious plan. Ranger and Mayor Jürgen Herper now makes sure that the birds don't go hungry and monitors the situation regularly. The Elbe is the lifeline for his protégés. Herper measures the water level in the river. This is what regulates the stork's food supply, as the dikes are not entirely waterproof thanks to a somewhat paradoxical-sounding scheme.
The water pressure builds up against the dike when the spring floodwaters arrive, and water penetrates the dike. It gets forced through so-called seepage water. On the inside of the dike, the water dampens large stretches of flatland and warms up quickly in the spring sunshine. These shallow, wet flats are a huge amphibian spawning ground, and we've got plenty of these zones all around Rooat. Frogs. If you want to have storks, you've got to have frogs.
As experienced hosts, the Rooat villagers know what their summer guests value most: full board. Over a dozen excavation pits were left behind when the dikes were constructed. These pools are the perfect spawning ground for frogs, and are conveniently situated a mere wing beat away from the village. Within a month, the chicks are hatched. The parent stork takes preventive measures. He pokes holes in the nest. This allows rainwater to drain from the nest, making sure the young don't drown. But from above, there's quite a different danger looming. A red kite, and he's got his eye on unguarded chicks. The older stork knows what must be done. A long, pointed stalk bill is quite a deterrent. The invader hesitates to see through his attack. Eventually, the bird of prey gives up. The breeding stork is not about to drop his guard. In the evenings, the summer guests leave the surrounding meadows of Rooat. They spend their nights in pairs in their eyries. However, their residences have no roofs, and this can be a problem. Wet and cold can turn their abode into a deadly mud bath. Those with a roof over their heads are definitely better off. So the parents stoically hold out, protecting their chicks and keeping them warm under their plumage. The parent stork checks on its young regularly. Once the rain passes, it leaves more than just the bird wet. Everything else is too. The parent birds now need to get dry as quickly as possible so as not to catch cold. At the base of the tail is a gland which secretes an oily substance. This is used to oil their wet plumage, making their feathers sleek again and able to form a warm cushion around the body. There's bad news from next door. Their chick is frail. The older stork has sensed instinctively that this little one is not going to make it. Now, in June, the sun heats up the air strongly and shines relentlessly up to 14 hours every day. The young birds pant, in danger of overheating. To quench their thirst, the parents play fire brigade. The older bird carries water in its throat pouch and regurgitates it. Parasol duty is another useful service provided by parents for their offspring. Now the young birds can be seen in their nests, they draw nature lovers in their droves. Stork TV allows everyone to join in without having to spend hours at the sun's mercy. For innkeeper Rainer Neumann, it's high season and clacking is a part of the business. He enjoys recounting the tales of some of his more outstanding house guests.
This was the pelican that arrived together with the storks on one occasion. He left a few days later. Then there was this blue stork here. It was all over the media, of course. And there was plenty of speculation as to where the blue coloring came from. We're pretty sure now that it must have been carpet dye. It probably fell into a carpet dyeing vat en route in Turkey and then managed to get out again.
The innkeeper only tells the nice stories. People rarely know about how difficult life can be for a stork. Because in high summer, there's actually a shortage of food in the fields around Rooat. But this is exactly the time they most need insects, worms and mice. Just to survive, a family of 5 storks has to have around 5 kilos of prey every day. Nest 20 is already having problems. Only 2 of the 3 young offspring beg for food. They literally fight each other for the food. The 3rd one gets nothing, and unnoticed by the bird fans, a drama begins to unfold high above their heads. Perhaps the weak chick is sick. The parent takes action. Maybe it's protecting its other young from becoming infected. When young birds start to die on the rooftops, the alarm goes out to Stork Club members. Uwe Weltin checks daily. Now, it seems there's not enough food to go round. The fields are mowed straight away. Just what the storks have been waiting for. Insects and mice no longer have cover, and the birds make ample use of the opportunity. Jürgen Herper's agreement with the local farmers worked. They mowed just in time.
It's especially important right now because the young birds need as much food as possible to gain strength. And mowing these local fields is perfect because of the proximity to the village. You can see behind us, more birds are coming because they can hear the machines. So they'll be foraging around this whole area for themselves and their young.
Mowing the fields especially for baby birds. The grass is sent to a special biogas plant that supplies the village with power. It's a win-win situation. If there's enough food, even the stork quadruplets in number 18 have a chance of survival. They're waiting for dinner. The forager has returned home with a crop full of food. Now what it needs is the right stimulation. The young birds hiss and tap on its beak, and their parent obligingly regurgitates its finds. The number of storks in the village at the end of June is almost as high as the number of villagers. Rooat proudly bears the title European Stork Village. Both old and new nests have one thing in common. They silt up with soil, so they need a regular clean out. It's not really pennies from heaven around here. And that's not all their hosts have to put up with either. Rooat's two-legged inhabitants on the ground and in the air have come to a pretty good arrangement. They keep an eye on each other. So it doesn't go unnoticed that in number 7 there are only 2 chicks instead of 3. Uwe Veltin goes into action. Mealtime preparation by a foster parent. The pensioner has started to take care of a baby stork found in his garden. It was thrown out of the nest by its parents.
Schmeckt es heute gar nicht? Sind doch wunderbare Häppchen.
He's building up the bird's strength. It's just another part of the all-round service. The villagers don't give up on any of the birds. One floor up, the young are also being looked after. This time, it's home improvements, extending the increasingly cramped nursery. New padding is required. The little ones must be made comfortable. No sooner has the straw bed been made than it's a mess again. This stork parent just can't do right for the kids. On the other hand, the subtenants seem quite happy. These sparrows have found a nice, secure refuge in the twigs. The big and little birds get on just fine. There's certainly enough space for them all. Before the stork offspring can leave the nest, the birds have to survive yet another adventure. The hosts get a chance to see things from the stork's point of view. As every year, the conservationists need to get up close. Not being able to fly, they have to find another way. The helpless young pretend to be dead. This makes the men's work easier. At the beginning of June, each new arrival in Rooat is fitted with its own ID. One of their legs gets a numbered ring so they can be recognized throughout their lifetime. It's all part of a routine, as is tidying up the nest. After only a few minutes, the visit is over. The young birds relax again, and things return to normal in the village. It's time for Uwe Weltin, the adopted stork dad, to part from his protégé. He's captured all the events of the past few weeks on camera.
And now comes the move to his new residence.
The stork is moved to a nest built by kindly Mr. Weltin on a little tower nearby.
Go on, in you go. There you are. That's just fine, isn't it? It was getting a bit cramped in that big old box, and he's been itching to spread his wings.
It won't stay in Mr. Weltin's garden for long, though. The stork fans have found a new family for the foster baby, so the grey-beaked bird is about to take a little trip. Under the watchful eye of its foster father, of course. Carefully, Mr. Weltin's protégé is placed in a nest with a single young bird. This gives it a better chance of being accepted and looked after. The young stork remains motionless at first. From now on, he's on his own. Will the experiment be a success? One of the new foster parents approaches and accepts the new chick. The adoption is a success. Outside in the fields, it's peak activity time. The noise of the tractors lures the older storks. The parents have to find plenty of food for their chicks. Mowing the fields has made foraging a lot easier. Although the big machines are intimidating, the prospect of a delicious snack is too tempting. The relationship between stork and human is mutually beneficial. A few days later, stork fancier Uwe Weltin checks up on his former nursling. Everything's fine. The adoptee is flourishing and seems to have been fully integrated into the little family. Both parents look after the young birds. They share the housework and fieldwork in exemplary fashion. Three weeks later, at the end of July, the young birds can be seen standing up in the nest. Left alone for long periods of time, they get bored. Moving about helps to pass the time, so they play and fool around a lot. The young birds get fed less often by their parents now, which encourages them to start exercising their wings. There's hardly enough room for them all in the nest now. The parents often seek temporary accommodation nearby. They make sure they can still keep an eye on their young, though, for safety's sake. The young birds will be cared for until they move out, because the environment is new and full of surprises. The high point of the season is the annual Stork Festival. Visitors flock to Rooat in their thousands to admire the stars of the show in their rooftop eyries. Ranger Herper tots up the numbers for the visitors. This year there were 38 breeding pairs and 54 young birds. A good year.
Now they're trying to take the food directly from their parent's beak, but can't. So the parent bird regurgitates.
And there's another thing the Rooat villagers are happy about. They counted 30,000 stork watchers. Other feathered friends have to take second place, whatever antics they get up to. Is it the way they look? It's more likely because they just aren't big enough. Anyway, the sparrows aren't much competition for the storks. All the focus is on the white-vested roof dwellers. For many, they are the embodiment of a perfect, intact village society. After all the festivities, nothing is going to keep the fledglings under house arrest for much longer. At last, it's time. The first proper outing. Their initial successes spur them on to continue practicing. One of them takes an unintentional aerial detour and rights itself again. Power supply lines through the village could pose a hazard to the inexpert pilots. Realizing this, the villagers of Rooat ensured that their power supply cables were laid below ground, especially to protect the low-flying novices. The village's adoptee has also successfully completed his first couple of flying hours. At the beginning of August, the storks begin more often to allow the warmer upward thermals to lift them higher in the sky. Storks are master gliders. They circle higher and higher, preparing for their imminent departure. But beforehand, these migrators must tank up their food reserves. The grain harvest is the perfect preparation for a lavish stork picnic. Young and old seek out the biggest morsels. They forage mostly for the mice and worms that live in the grain fields. What to the farmer is a pest is their delicacy. Once again, the locals and their feathered visitors benefit from the synergy of living alongside one another. A short while later, autumn heralds its arrival in the water meadows of the Elbe. The Elbe and its banks still offer the storks enough food resources for them to survive, but this will soon change. Falling night temperatures and shorter days signal the migrating birds' departure, and their neighbors, the grey geese. All 140 storks in Rooat will soon leave their summer quarters. This puts Mayor Herper in a reflective mood.
The storks are valuable because their presence, their returning, imparts a sense of well-being. And in today's high-tech world, I think that's a message for the future.
Storks remain a symbol of an intact countryside environment, and for the villagers, they're an essential economic factor. In the middle of August, they set off for Africa. First the young birds, followed by the older ones. While the visitors turn their backs on the place for many months, the Stork Club still has plenty of work to do. Behind closed doors, planning for next year's nest cleaning is already underway. Because the storks will only return in large enough numbers if they're offered first-class service. Rooat settles down to wait out the 7 months for its summer tenants to come back. And peace descends on Germany's premier stork village.